So nice to have you here with us sir, today. After a very long time, I guess last time we met was last year. And I want to introduce my colleagues and the company called Zetwerk. They are a manufacturing startup.
My name is Srinath Ramakrishnan. So me, Amrit and Vishal are on the call. We're all engineers from different IITs. Me and Amrit are from IIT Madras. Vishal is from IIT Kharagpur. About 8 years, we worked in different manufacturing companies. And in 2018, we started Zetwerk. Our vision is in Zetwerk is to basically build a strong manufacturing platform across capital goods and consumer goods, where the innovation here is to tap into the good capacities and capabilities that are available with the MSME ecosystem in India, tap into their capacities and capabilities and execute good contracts, big contracts in a time-bound manner, in a reliable manner.
I would say that you identified the right opportunity. I'll tell you why. What are you doing is optimizing on the existing available capacities within the country. See, the challenge is, as you know, at a macro level, the capacity utilization of India keeps fluctuating. But even before pandemic, it was not more than 70%. In some industries, of course, it was as high as 90%. Some, it could be even low as 40, 50%. But that shows at macro level, there is a capacity available which is not utilized. So there, the fixed cost is already sunk in. Yeah. So what you have to really use is a potential available for making that additional incremental cost. And for a person who has already created a capacity for manufacturing and is not able to utilize 100%, that means when you start utilizing it, you are actually using the low-cost manufacturing for your own goods. So therefore, you have that arbitrage available to you in terms of, rather than putting up a greenfield facility, use the existing one and try to leverage it. So therefore, I was saying it's a great opportunity. Secondly, in a way, the problem for SME is that he has to be all rolled into one. He has to be purchase manager, sales manager, finance manager, accounts manager, corporate relations manager, and whatnot. And it is not possible for one single person to do all these functions at the same time. And he cannot afford to have more than one person or more than many people to have doing this function. So what you are doing is, you are telling him what your facilities are available. I'm going to give you, allow you to use optimum facility, number one. Number two, focus on what you're good at. Absolutely. Manufacturing, and I will like to give more inputs to make the manufacturing better, upgrade the qualities, bring in better technology. So that's what you're doing. And thirdly, you are freeing him of trouble of marketing it. Yeah. And probably you will be doing the marketing part of it.
I'm asking this question on behalf of a lot of startups operating in India across different sectors. Sir, when it comes to working with the government and public sector companies, obviously today we have beautiful systems in terms of procurement, whether it is reverse auction or whether it is tendering system. Sir, somewhere where some of the startups lose out is in terms of vintage. Most of the tenders today ask for great vintage of the company as a qualification criteria, and also so many years of balance sheet, etc. So we are a 3-year-old company, and the whole startup evolution in India has happened in the last decade or so, right? So some of the great opportunities, sir, we have 500 engineers in our company from all good institutions in India. We have excellent execution capabilities, we have excellent technical capabilities, but we are not able to sometimes access opportunities. Startups are not able to access opportunities because of certain criteria. What is your take on this, sir? What is your thoughts on this, and how do we?
You are absolutely right. I'll tell you my own experience in this. When I was, Startup India was also under me.
Right.
I used to put the startups on one side and the regulators on the other side. And I have an interface with both of them. And my idea was to ask them was like what you identified correctly as a problem is that the startups are breaking away from the past. Where the regulation, if not all times, in most of the time, is made related to the past events and past activities. So you are regulating past, and a startup is actually breaking away from that past. And that's the problem. So therefore, I used to tell them that regulation is necessary, but don't bring regulation on the old ideas, but bring regulation by interacting with the startups, understand what they're trying to do, and bring the startup. For example, healthcare would always need regulation. A fintech would always need a regulation. Transportation, because there's safety issues involved, would always need a regulation. You need a safety regulator to understand that safety angles are not compromised. But that does not mean that only old companies can do a better job than the new companies. What is important is company may be new or old, if they can conform to these standards of regulation, which will guarantee the outcome. The outcome is safety. Outcome is financial security in case of fintech. If the outcome could be health in case of healthcare companies. So that should not be compromised.
Right.
But the compromise, or you don't guarantee the outcome only because the company is old. That can happen with new companies even better. That the new should not be debarred from being the real participants into this process only because they lack that experience. So you're right.
Sir, a lot of young companies today want to bring in foreign technology through international collaborations, especially in the backdrop of the massive infrastructure investment that is in the pipeline, be it modern and more efficient ports or be it faster construction of roads or railways, because other countries have done it. So since the government has a wide network across the globe with multiple countries and they interact at different levels, how can the government help young companies like us bring in some technology from abroad to India?
See, the 60s and 70s, government only had access to technologies. And then government used to decide which technology should be given to which company and what technology should be good for them. I think that should not be the right model, in my opinion.
No.
When government gets into the technology sourcing, I think that should not be the model, in my opinion. Government can facilitate, our missions can facilitate. And that's what Prime Minister always says, that a mission's job is to help. So you go to US, for example, the mission in US, the Indian mission in the United States should help you facilitate it. But it's not a government of India should go and take the technology and then help with it. I think that should not be the right model.
Whenever we are out of this COVID era, how soon do you think India will become a 5 trillion economy?
Question is how soon, that depends upon how fast I walk. So let's focus on how fast we can accelerate our rate of growth. And that is what Prime Minister is trying to do. So that once we start doing that, I'm sure we'll reach there sooner than later.
So what role do you think these small young companies, startups can play in that?
The success of an entrepreneurship depends on how well you can look at opportunities. The opportunities come at knocking of your door, but don't keep going again and again. They will knock some other doors. If you don't open the door when they knock you for the first time. So you have to be very alert and try to capture it. And that's what I was giving an example of how I did in case of Sujit Bhalla when appointed committee. This was precisely for this, that when the supply chains are going to be changing course, how India should benefit from it. Really quite a foresight that we displayed in terms of organizing something like this. So now today, for a startup to get into supply chain, you have to show some sort of uniqueness. See, the supply chains will not going to come to you only because, China is not doing well and the other country is not doing well. That's fine. That's at very, very macro level. But, another thing is that there are many other countries waiting in the wings to actually capture the same market that you are trying to get. So that's fine. So unless we show some uniqueness so that uniqueness can be in terms of speed of delivery, uniqueness can in terms of cost, the uniqueness may be in terms of better product, uniqueness can be in terms of your ability to keep very versatile and keep very flexible so that any new product line they want to bring in, you can do that faster. The obsolescence, redundancies will come in at a much faster rate than before. So you have to keep So that flexibility can also be one of the unique selling point. So you have to work on that.
So during your time as the railway minister, you kind of promoted a lot of new technologies, a lot of kind of path breaking initiatives were taken. So I just wanted to understand, railways still as a space dominated by a few top companies, and there isn't a scope for a young company to enter that ecosystem with a kind of a big ticket size.
New technologies will already come in with a new platform that we create. And the new platform that we create must be transparent, which must be participatory, and which must be rule-based. So that's why we are actually created a vision wherein the railways can actually get new technology. So the problem is, if railways is not as flexible as it should be in terms of absorbing new ideas and new technologies, it will always have a problem, because then we'll miss out on opportunities. See, there is already, you can look at it, any opportunity in one way, that somebody comes in, gives you a new idea, new technology, new product. Obviously, that company which is giving you that wants to sell it to you. Fine. But you should not look at it as only from that perspective of that company is going to benefit. That company will definitely benefit, but even the person who is buying the product, that organization also will benefit. So railway has an advantage of engaging with new entrepreneurs, new startups, new people for railway's own good. So in the railways also, we are trying to work on something like this. I had said that railways should work on something like futuristic ideas, wherein the entire, not railways alone, but what is the future of transportation? Because railway is actually a transporter today. Railway can also transform itself into not just a transporter bit, but something more than that. But when railway wants to be becoming more than, or today want to succeed as a transporter, then you must align railways growth plan with that of the transport's changing profile globally. I said railways should become a co-developer of technologies. So I invited companies and told them that why don't you come and co-develop technology with us, because you're not fully developed. Your ideas will work with you and we'll take that idea forward, so that IP, intellectual property of that particular product, will also be with the railways. So railway will not be just, will buy a product, but not the IP, which is added cost to the product. And therefore, this was what we are trying to do. I think we should try to do that more, so that railways will also become a completely, in the process of interacting with the startups, working with new technologies, railway will also transform itself. And in the process, automatically you will see that even the ecosystem will get developed. So even today, the railways must realize that new ideas can be generated only in the startups. So we must engage with the startups. The top players of the world, top companies of the world, even technology companies, today's top 5 technology companies of the world, why they keep constantly buying new technologies from startups? Because they realize that new ideas are born in startups.
India has gone through a very difficult phase, as we know, in terms of the health crisis and the overall economic situation. So how soon do you think the economic recovery would come back?
We will come into positive growth of rate of growth, probably from the next quarter itself. And in fact, there is a contemporary evidence as well as empirical evidence which shows that whenever there is a pandemic, post-pandemic, the recovery becomes much faster. So this is bound to happen, that the spending will start, consumption will go up, and obviously the production cycle will restart. We have lost quite a bit of production because it was a conscious decision taken by the governments, state as well as central governments together, and sometimes independent of each other, for a simple reason, is to stop the spread of the virus. So it was a conscious decision to cut down the economic activity. So this decline and contraction of GDP is not something we should surprise somebody. This was a very planned, carefully articulated decision. And therefore, I think this is something which is inevitably was bound to happen. But post-pandemic, and the post-pandemic can start with vaccination going on in a big way. Because today, as you know, the medical science has only one weapon to fight pandemic, and that's vaccine.
Yeah.
And vaccination has started in India in a big way. There are obviously logistical challenges of availability and all of that, but we are getting over that. And very soon, I think a good part of India's population will be fully vaccinated.
Mm.
And once that happens, the spread of virus will stop. Once we get into a critical mass of people who are fully vaccinated.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, the reopening will also assume a much faster, accelerated speed. And with that, the economic recovery will also happen faster. So I think it's a matter of time now. I think this year, 2021-22, the fiscal 21-22 should certainly be positive. And already there are signs in which things are looking up. For example, very interestingly, agriculture export has gone up. And therefore, you will see a very interesting transformation into the even agriculture landscape as a result of this. So I think things will look up as we go along. Thanks to the Prime Minister's new initiative of production-linked incentives, we will see a new line of manufacturing will start in India. As you know, currently GDP comes only 16% of the GDP comes from manufacturing industry actually. So we have to take it to 20%. The Prime Minister's vision when he launched Make in India was 25%, and it will reach that level with this PLI, with the changing perception about manufacturing in some countries. People want to shift manufacturing out of that country. And in fact, realizing that opportunity.
Which are the three top sectors that you think will lead?
See, one is obviously the healthcare, because the focus now will be on the healthcare for a long, long time to come, and particularly the public healthcare, because people will now realize that healthcare is not only an issue related to health, it is an issue related to health of your economy. It is related to health of your social life, health of countries. So therefore, healthcare will assume a completely different role. And therefore, the industry we are dealing with healthcare facilities, not just pharmaceuticals, not just medicine, many entire ecosystem will get a boost. That's first. Secondly, logistic. This is something which we must realize. And in fact, today, whatever we are happening today, despite lockdowns globally, is because of logistics. And even Amazon can deliver a product to you from US only because there's a logistic behind it, which is functioning very effectively. And that means the second important industry that will pick up in the next few years will be this. Third will be agriculture and food. Why? Because people realize that when the disruptions happen of this kind, we are not planned for such disruptions in terms of creating food safety. Countries planned for energy security. And therefore, they created strategic reserves of oil, strategic reserves of gas, and many others, and also ensured that the supply chains for supplying that can be properly secured. But they never planned for food as such. So in fact, during the pandemic, for first few days, there was a challenge because people were thinking that they're running out of toilet paper. So you can imagine that we never planned for toilet paper. But in India, it's not a problem because we don't use toilet paper that much. But in a country which uses only toilet paper in your toilet, that they have a big problem. So they never planned for it. So now the new challenge will be logistic, of course, and the second will be food and related issues which went into short supply for a while. And therefore, I think that again, so I think these three industries for sure, along with transportation, that maybe you can club it with the logistic. And of course, as we go along, infrastructure, because the renewed focus on infrastructure is coming back. The US is putting in a few $1 trillion. The G7 the other day decided to focus on infrastructure in a big way. India's Prime Minister has a vision of $few $1 trillion to be invested into infrastructure. So I think infrastructure will be another key growth sector for the Indian economy, for globally, but also Indian economy.
I would request you to give young companies of India, startups, a message. What is your message for them?
See, I'll tell you, the startups in India are growing in numbers, but startups in India must grow in terms of quality, in terms of new innovative ideas. And then over a period of time, any startup cannot remain as a small organization for all times to come. You start small, but ambition must be to grow big. Like if you take all the top 3-4 technology companies of the world, they started from the garages. But today they need many more garages to park their executives' cars. That is how they've grown. I think so. Therefore, I think what is important is to keep your vision. First, don't keep your eye on the ball that you have to make your startup work because you have a technology or you have an idea. So keep that eye on the ball, but never miss out on vision of making into a big entity as you go along. And that is what is going to change the idea of startups in India today. So startups in India, sometimes you feel, anybody will say, I'm very small. So small is beautiful, no doubt about it. But that should not remain small for all times to come. When my son was young, I was always very happy that a young boy is born into my family. But if I was always wanting him to remain small, I'm not doing justice to him. So I think the happiness of being small is good for some time. But if you don't grow out of that, you'll never be able to succeed and realize the true potential of a startup.
Definitely, we are all ambitious, and we are happy to have gotten this opportunity to interact with you. Fantastic messages, and we are taking home very powerful thoughts. Thanks a ton for your time, sir.